Hello, folks. Welcome to another episode of the Rocker Dog Podcast, the show that talks to musicians about their craft, career, and influences. I'm afraid not. We're the show that talks to them about their dogs. I'm your host, Tim Dill, along with my main influence, Charlie the Golden Doodle. And today we bring you a fantastic talk with Justin Pearson, who's an influential figure in the punk hardcore noise rock community, playing in such bands as The Locust, Def Club, and Dead Cross. He's also an author, actor, and owner of the label 31G, and this is his wise and all-knowing rocker dog.
So yeah, Captain's my dog. He's awesome. He's like this weirdo Cocker Spaniel that I think holds the answer to the universe. But yeah.
We'll have to get into that.
Yeah.
How old is he?
He's 7, about to turn
Okay.
8. Yeah.
And what was, if you go back 7 years, considering what was going on in your life as an artist and musician, what was the context for getting him?
You know, it's such a strange thing in retrospect because my previous dog, Gigi, who she was my second dog in my life, but kind of like the dog that I chose and I took care of wasn't like my childhood dog.
Mm-hmm.
She had gone deaf. We had to remove her ear canals so she couldn't hear, and so she kept going with me to record and to rehearsals and stuff, and it didn't really affect her. It was pretty crazy to like look at a small Cocker Spaniel lay between Dave Lombardo's 2 kick drums and not really know like what was going on. And so she had passed away from cancer, and so I was like, oh, I want to adopt a dog, and I was like stuck on getting this dog named Punky in New York, from a foster that and it was deaf, and I went there and the lady wouldn't let me see Punky, which really weird. And I was like, look, I'm the totally like the best candidate, for this dog, like let me adopt it. And my friend Rob, who was working at a shelter, was like, we're gonna find you another one, like another dog. We'll figure this out. And I kind of wasn't like super gung-ho on like adopting another dog, but I was like very much open to it. I had missed Gigi a lot, and so I had traveled with, so my partner Becky at the time lived in New Jersey, so so that's why I was in New York trying to adopt Punky. And we had traveled to these places that had dogs for adoption, and it was crazy because we had driven pretty far, like into Pennsylvania, like a couple hours, and met Captain, and then went on and like looked at some other places and went and got dinner, and we were pretty far away, and I was just like, I think we're gonna have to go back and like get that dog. So it's funny because I called and I was like, hey, we're gonna come back and grab that dog, and it'll be like pretty late, 10:30 at night. And then I think they're fine with it or whatever, but it was a trip, and super weird. He lived in a barn with a dog, with a horse, and there was no electricity, and it was a strange thing. So he went from there to California and he goes to the beach all the time and like rages. So yeah, I could keep
What
going
was
on.
it about him at the time? If you were kind of looking around and he there's something about him that didn't leave your mind when you moved on.
Yeah, it's just it's like a brief interaction. I completely equate it to when I first met my dog before Gigi, where like it's just you're only with that dog for a moment and something happens. I can't explain it in language. It was like there's an energy and an emotion I feel that is shared. And yeah, I mean, Captain was a few months old and like probably doesn't understand a whole lot of things in this world, but for whatever reason, I feel like we shared a moment and had shared some sort of energy that I can't really explain. I left just constantly, like completely like engulfed with like his essence, and I just kept thinking like, oh man, that's the dog. Like he did something. I
Hmm.
don't know. So because it's weird because I had seen other dogs and I was just like, since him, like on the couple hours after, and I was just like, man, like I really feel like there's something there.
And what is it about? It seems Cocker Spaniels are your dogs. Like that was one in your childhood, and then Gigi, and now
Yeah.
Captain.
Yeah, I mean, I didn't choose my first dog, Brandy. My dad's coworker gave her to us, and so that was that. I'm not like I don't care about like breeds or full bred dogs or things like of that nature.
To just go back
Yeah,
to
I don't
the energy
know.
and what you kind of sense off them or feed off of them.
I suppose so. I mean, I think so. I don't think getting Gigi was a conscious effort to get a Cocker Spaniel, but getting Captain as a Cocker Spaniel was a conscious effort. And so I
Hmm.
had already become like familiar with the breed and knowing like they enjoy the beach, which I also do too. And they enjoy, like we just meshed together as like friends. And I
Hmm.
felt like, so with Captain, I was like, yeah, I want to, adopt another Cocker Spaniel. So also too, like I feel maybe that I am kind of drawn towards dogs that I guess need haircuts that don't shed as much. Because I do have really bad allergies and like I live with a cat and I'm allergic to cats. So I'm constantly trying to like not my allergies up. And so I would assume that like a Cocker Spaniel is somewhat hypoallergenic. Maybe not, but the fact that they don't shed as much as a dog that doesn't get
Hmm.
groomed was also a thing. So that is the one thing that I kind of looked for as far as like adopting another dog is the shedding thing, I suppose.
Okay. And do you raise Captain differently than you raised Gigi, given that Gigi was deaf? And I have a quote from a magazine article that Gigi was a bona fide member of the San Diego music community. So can you say the same for Captain, or does Captain kind of, since he's a healthy hearing dog, you kind of shelter him from, like you said, the double bass drums?
Yeah. I raised them differently in the sense that I'm more knowledgeable now too, because when I got Gigi, I didn't really know as much. And I also, when I got Gigi, this was close to 20 years ago, the quality of life that dogs get has changed. Like now you can take dogs everywhere and there's a
Hmm.
lot more knowledge on like raising them healthier and giving them a better quality of life. Not that I didn't want to choose that. I was always doing like whatever I could to make things better. I mean, even like when Gigi got cancer, the amount of stuff that I went through to save her or to prolong her life was kind of wild. But I do raise Captain differently in the sense that he eats like the most insane food possible and like he gets like more exercise and like I don't know like before when I would like go on tour and stuff it wouldn't be I wouldn't, not that I didn't, I was like negligent, but like with Gigi, I would just be like, hey, can you just take her? And like, I didn't know, like now I'm more like hypersensitive. Like, is he able to party every day? And can he like do all the rat that he wants to do? And like, is he happy? That's so important. Where I don't know that I was like as aware of it then, but now like he completely hates music, which I would, assume he should. So I have a rehearsal space below my bedroom. It's like sort of in a canyon, and when the Locust would rehearse, it doesn't you can't hear it outside, which is great because I don't want my neighbors to know what the hell's going on, but you can hear it up. So
Okay.
he would get pretty scared. Yeah, he's not a big fan of music or loud noises. I live in this kind of interesting neighborhood where, like, for instance, Christmas just happened, and like on Christmas Eve, people shoot off like crazy fireworks and shoot
Yep.
off guns and machine guns and shit. And so New Year's Eve is in a couple days, and they're gonna do the same thing, and he fucking loses his mind. And most dogs do, and it's pretty traumatic for them. So if they can't handle like a couple fireworks and some guns, they're definitely not going to be able to handle like a full live set of any band that I'm part of.
Right.
Uh, yeah,
Now,
but with Gigi it was interesting because she had we had to like remove her ear canals, so they completely were like gone. It was crazy because I would just take her to the studio to record or to rehearsal. I mean the last few months to a year of her life, we were inseparable. Like she was with me all the time, no matter what, wherever I went. I even like had a backpack that I would put her in and carry her in, like to stores or whatever I had to do. Yeah, like because I would travel to Los Angeles to work in a studio and so she just had to be with me all the time. So with Captain, he definitely is not a fan. He's gone to me with the studio a few times when he was a little puppy, but like, he's just not into like loud music and definitely not into drums. So
now, what was going on in your life? Let's go back with Gigi, because it sounds like obviously you grew up in a sense with the dog. I mean, I imagine 20 years ago, what was the context of your life then and why the dog then? Was it a good decision then?
No, well, it's funny because it wasn't a good decision, and on paper or in theory, but after, she became my dog, it was a great decision. And I realized very quickly that she changed who I was and how I perceived the world. And they teach us, they're teachers. I feel like she, just like Captain, teaches me like patience and just a different understanding, a different way to navigate the world, a different understanding of the world and people and myself. And I think those are all important things. So with any dog, it's never really like, I mean, I do everything I can for a dog in my life, but occasionally it's like I gotta go to a show or play a show or gotta go on tour or I gotta go whatever, and they like they'll sit there like, oh, this is the end, how you're leaving me forever, and like that, ideally I'd be like, hey, it's cool, like I understand you're sensitive, just come with me, or I mean, I do what I can. And it is crazy, like going on tour for weeks or a month or whatever. Like I wonder what they think, but I'm lucky that I co-parent with my partner Becky. So Captain will have someone, and he also loves my mom. My mom, she treats him very well, and he's obsessed with my mom. So there's always like someone to kind of care for him, and that's the thing that I need to like make sure is available, because I don't want to like have to neglect him in any way. I think it's heartbreaking because they need us, as much as we need them.
Yeah, I mean, I found interesting is, going back 10 or 20 years, obviously you're in a different place in your life, and, a monetary aspect has come up. I saw on your Instagram or an article I read that, you said touring life barely pays the bills, much alone the vet bills. And you mentioned, unfortunately Gigi had the ear thing and cancer, and you did so much for her to prolong her life. That's where the question of, was it a good idea at the time, just given your lifestyle, can you afford it at the time? But you made do. It sounded like you hustled a bit, and the community kind of rallied around you and did some fundraisers and stuff like that. I think that says a lot about you and the dog, about how you're viewed in the community.
Sure, yeah. I mean, I think with Gigi and Captain, they're kind of like, especially since the introduction of social media, they're sort of like little celebrities. I think it's great knowing someone that's popular in a sense, and knowing their dog, that I feel like, oh, that's great. I can relate or like appreciate them almost as much as the human, or as much, like that's cool that that's your dog. So, like when Gigi had medical conditions, a friend of mine set up a GoFundMe, and then also someone made art, and I made a t-shirt. So I think like Gigi kind of became this sort of like pseudo celebrity, and Captain as well. I mean, a record just came out recently, and he's on the insert, and he's made it into a couple videos and stuff like that. And I think that's cool. I think a lot of humans that are maybe empaths or have an element of empathy and love animals can appreciate a human that is rallying for their companion. Mm-hmm. So like again, a good example is oh man, I can't remember the name of the song, but there's a Touche Amore song that came out like probably during the pandemic, and it was like, I remember but they asked if Captain and I would be in their video, and I was like, of course. And like the video is just like humans and their companions, and right. Like all of these people that are like in bands and stuff, and that's awesome. I think that's such a cool thing, because the dogs have no clue, I mean, maybe they do, maybe they know like, oh yeah, I'm in this video because you guys would do the thing, and we'll never know, but they don't care about the music or the video, but we are saying to the world, like, we love our friends so much, please acknowledge them or whatever. Right. Did I just go off on a tangent? Maybe I did.
It's okay. It's all dogs.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, another place I want to go to, I mean, same topic, but you said, and this goes back again to go back with Gigi, is that you wanted a dog to increase the stability in your life. Do you remember saying that? And how so?
Well, I don't know if I necessarily remember saying it. I remember thinking it, because it did give me a sort of structure in a sense, where like,
as a responsibility, or how
sort of responsibility has like this kind of weird demeanor where it seems like it's this kid that I have to take care of. And technically, I guess it could be, but like I looked at it more like, we're going to be in each other's lives. We have to kind of function, because the concept of like a parent and a child is like, you're raising your child to survive, or to live, or whatever. But I felt like dogs, Gigi and Captain, were also in a sense like not raising me, but helping me as well. So it was like, it wasn't like I'm the parent and they're the kid, which a lot of people have that sort of like hierarchy. I look at it like we're cohabitating and like functioning on a different level. And so that's how I look at it. I always in my brain, I mean, I fucking hate Mel Gibson, but in my brain I always think of Road Warrior, and as a kid I grew up and I was obsessed with that movie where like Mad Max is cruising around in this badass car and he's got his dog and they're like in, you know, the apocalypse has happened. And I always in my brain like felt like that. Yeah, a Cocker Spaniel doesn't look quite like that, and I don't have like a full leather outfit on, and I'm not in a muscle car. But and the apocalypse hasn't quite happened yet. But I feel like that where we're a good team. We're like on this mean planet, and we're gonna like get through this. You know, we're gonna survive. Because you know, they help us in you know, mentally or what, however, you know, and they do help us survive. So I don't look at it as like that hierarchy with like a parent thing. I look at it like we're kind of together. So it gave me stability in the sense that like, yeah, I have to like hunker down and make sure my dog has food and you know, and like a great quality of life. But it gave me like another sense of responsibility and just like how to sort of, I mean, I'm still learning every day now, like how to be a better person. And I think it's in part due to having like dogs in my life. It helps me navigate. I can see how they function on this planet and these constructs that humans made. Yeah, I don't know. It helps me.
What
It
is it
gives me.
about that? Oftentimes, if my dog's, you know, behind, you know, in the yard, I'll be like, try to channel, like, what's he seeing right now? How's he processing it? I mean, do you think the same way sometimes? Like, how does this
All the
dog
time.
move through the world that more or less we constructed? The sidewalk. I mean, everything is so man-made these days. It's, you
Yeah.
know, everything in their environment is an obstacle we created.
Yeah. Well, that's an interesting point because the dog that I'm fostering right now, Winston, who's blind, it's another thing because I thought a lot about it with Gigi being deaf, and now I've been thinking a lot about it with Winston being blind, and it's pretty crazy to watch him. He loves going in the car, and he gets in the car and he just smells and smells and smells because he's getting all that information which he can't get through eyesight. And that's a really interesting thing to realize. And then it brings me back to, I already knew it, but like I heard this quote on NPR from this vet. This is quite a while ago that like when a dog's hanging its head out the window, the amount of like sensory overload that it gets from the wind is equivalent to just doing a bunch of cocaine, like a human doing cocaine. And I've never done cocaine, but I look at him wanting to go out the window and smelling, and I'm like, oh my gosh, you want to do the thing, you know, it's that all the humans do. So going back to like just seeing like how people navigate or how the dogs navigate, like that, yeah, like what the hell is that guy smelling? I don't know, but he's getting tons of information that we don't get, you know.
Yeah.
It's a trip. The whole thing's a trip.
How did it
Kind of
come
weird.
about to foster Winston?
After Gigi passed away, I signed up with this spaniel rescue in San Diego. Because I don't know how they came into contact with me, but I signed up to be a foster. And it was funny because for a while they would like hit me up and be like, "Hey, do you want to foster this dog?" And I'd be like, "Of course." Okay, we're gonna meet up on this day, and you can take him or her. And then by the time we'd get to that day, they'd be like, "Sorry, the dog was adopted." But I was like grateful the dog was adopted, you know. So that's the goal. And so there's a couple that I fostered. Like we had this other one, Moose, and he jumped the fence like a maniac. And so we were like, dude, we can't have you do that. So yeah, and then so the people from the foster were like, you want to take this blind dog? And I was like, that might be a hard one for me, you know, like have a blind dog. I don't know, it's a lot of work. And then she kind of said this thing about how, well, the foster now is going to go out of town and we're gonna have to put him back in the shelter. And I was just like, oh man, all right, that's just the thought of like a blind dog being
Yeah.
in the shelter just is terrible. So I was like, you know what, we'll just figure this out.
How's it been with the dog? I've only had one experience with the blind dog recently at a shelter. I volunteer, and it's just, I mean, it's heartbreaking, but they're so resilient. And he had a guide dog, his own guide dog,
Whoa.
another, because this was a situation where the owner had passed away.
Uh,
But I'm curious, what do you need to do to see this dog is cared for without sight?
Really, I wish I knew his backstory. I don't know. I don't know if he was born blind. I'm assuming he was. I don't know much about him aside from the fact that he's blind. He's 6 or 7. But so he navigates pretty well. It's funny because the person that was fostering before said to use the word bonk when he's about to hit the wall. So I'm constantly yelling bonk, and Unfortunately, he'll hit and then I'll say bonk. But I kind of watch him like obviously not seeing, but like he'll turn his head and try to like figure out where the sound's coming from, and he kind of knows the landscape of the house. It hasn't been that many days. He kind of figured it out. He knows like the front door has 2 steps, so he'll take these gigantic, adorable, like
Yeah.
steps, like trying to get up and out of it. So it's cool to just kind of watch him do it. The only thing that's a drag is like right now I'm upstairs in my house. And I don't let him come up here, and so he will like cry sometimes because he wants to come upstairs, and that's the only thing that is concerning to me. But he's doing pretty well. I think Captain helps him at least. Like when Captain's walking or running through the house or walking outside, I think he'll like trail him, maybe from scent, and that's pretty interesting to watch. The one thing he doesn't understand is our cat. I don't think he understands what a cat can do to him. And so
Yeah.
he'll kind of go up to the cat really close, and Bruce will just swat him, because
Oh,
Bruce doesn't know he's blind. He just thinks like, oh, this dog is going to come up with me, because
yeah.
Captain works with Bruce all the time. So,
Has
yeah,
Captain been good with the Fosters? I know you just
for the
mentioned he's
most
good
part,
with
they had
Winston.
one Winston. They had one little thing where like I feel that because Winston doesn't know what's happening, so I think he like sat on him or something, and Captain snapped at him, and I was like, you guys, and I had to put him aside. I don't know if they fully understand, like, hey, I don't think Captain knows, like, this guy can't see, I mean,
Right.
he probably is aware of something, but it doesn't fully understand the concept. So that there was like one thing, but otherwise they get along great. They eat well together. They sleep in the same room. They sleep on the same couch. Like, they do like shit together. They like run around and they smell everything and like cruise around on walks together. We took them to the park, and Captain wants to rage, and Winston obviously can't rage. And I think he kind of barks because he's like, what's happening? Like, why, like, why is Captain like rip roaring around? Like, thinks something like bad might be happening, or anyhow, it's been interesting to see how it goes.
Yeah. Well, I applaud you for fostering. I know every shelter around the country is at capacity and begging people for help. So every little bit helps.
Yeah, it's also too like when you point out the music community and people rallying, I feel like it's like, I hate using this word, but like my duty to kind of be like, hey, check out this dog, you should adopt him, and it's funny because the previous dog we were fostering, Moose, was that jumped the fence, he was insane, like he was very hard to deal with, but at one point he just jumped in the back of the Deaf Club tour van and like was standing on the drum case. It just looked insane because there's like the back of the van full of gear, and he's like just standing there, and I was like, oh, I got to get a photo of this, and so we posted it online, and I was trying to get him adopted, assuming that like, hey, there's a lot of eyes on this, because of me and the band, maybe people will adopt him, and I don't think it happened. I think he needs a little bit more training.
Yeah.
But with Winston, again, like he's so cute and like would be really great. Someone pointed out to me that the blind dog is like having an elderly dog, but without the medical conditions of like a
Hmm.
dog getting old and having issues. Like he's
Yeah.
young, he's blind, so he's very slow and kind of like just likes to hang out and snuggle and shit like that. So that's cool. So maybe he will get adopted, and I don't know. We'll see what happens. But yeah, it is a lot of like learning with all of them. Even with Captain, I'm constantly learning from that guy. It's crazy. It's
Yeah.
crazy.
Well, I wind up every show with what I call the Zoomies, and they're 5 frivolous questions. So let's go there. The first
Okay.
one is, do you kiss your dogs on the mouth?
I don't think so. Not on purpose. Everywhere, like all over his face or whatever, his nose or whatever it is. But like not. I don't really. I don't know. I try to avoid it. I think it's strange when dogs kiss humans and lick them, but he'll lick my chin, not my mouth, like just my chin.
Right.
Which I'm like, that's cool. Just keep it there because I saw you licking your dick earlier. So just probably, So yeah, I'll kiss the guy everywhere, but I probably avoid. He's got stinky lips.
All right. Well, question two is, given your occupation, if your dog had a theme song, what would it be? Is there any
Uh,
song that kind of encapsulate who he is personality wise?
I mean, in my brain, he's got a theme song. It'd be like probably that song "Hot Butter Popcorn," maybe. Do you know that one? It's like a Moog. It's like a famous Moog song, or like maybe the Coast to Coast outro song. I don't know if you're familiar with Coast to Coast AM radio. Yeah, just like weird. kind of like these sort of like triumphant,
Right.
I could see them like marching along to it, whatever.
Well, I know in the past, Gigi was present at gigs. I don't know if Captain's been on gigs, but any dog that's been to a gig, if you could put something in the rider, so to speak, what would it be?
That would have been a great idea because Gigi toured with me for a bit, even when she had hearing. But I was never in the like position at the time to like have a rider.
Mhm.
But it would be cool to have dog snacks on a rider. I never thought about that. Probably because I'm not normally touring with a dog.
Yeah. I mean, I've had artists on the show that have, like a Chihuahua they bring with them, which is, a lot easier to manage than probably anything over 20 pounds.
Yeah.
Question 4 is, do you use a dog voice? Do you speak to your dog in a dog voice, or on occasion do you personify him and give him a dog voice as if it was his personality?
I do have a dog voice depending on what I'm trying to communicate with him. He also responds to my regular voice or stern voice if he's in trouble. And I do think he has a voice. I'm always thinking like, what would his voice sound like? And I mean, it's hard. I don't think I could recreate it, but in my brain, he's got a voice for sure.
But can you describe it? Does it fit into like a Spicoli or more of a, I don't know what.
Kind of like an overly confident teenager, I guess, just like, yeah, with like occasionally with a slightly bad attitude, like,
Yeah.
come on, Dad, what the, like, I don't know. Let me chase that skateboard or whatever.
Okay. And last but not least, is there a dog organization or service that you like to give a shout out to? I know you mentioned a couple just in our conversation.
Yeah, I mean the San Diego Spaniel Rescue is great, obviously because they're local, but I think all rescues are awesome. One of my closest friends, Rob Vasquez, who's from like all these rad bands, Rice and Peaches. He ran this place called Bark Shelter in New York, and he was so awesome. And like it was really cool to like kind of vibe out with that guy after years of knowing him and like having him say how he hates humans because of the way they treat dogs, which is pretty accurate. And so I mean all shelters are just incredible. And then also too locally, I mean I'm a big fan of this place, South Bark. So there's an area next like close by where I live called South Park. So there's the South Bark store.
Okay.
And the owner is just great. They always are just really helpful and informative, and they're a small business, and I want to support them. I can appreciate places that are a little bit more hip to what is better for the dog and not for their
The bottom line.
profit. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Was Captain a model in Modern Dog for a Jiminy's treats?
Yeah.
How did that come to be?
I'm not exactly sure. My friend Dave Warshaw, who is actually one of the original people on the Locust, he had the snacks at his business that he owns, and he was like, "Oh, my friend started this company or something." Somehow he knew the people that ran the company, and so we took a couple photos of him eating them, and it got to them very easily. So they used it, and it came out in a magazine. It was so cool. So yeah, it's like that's the kind of. I mean, I obviously he got enjoyment for eating the crickets, but we got enjoyment for seeing him in a publication. It seems so cool. So those are the kind of things that are pretty special, for sure.
Yeah,
I love that stuff, like the extended universe of what a dog's reach can be.
Yeah. Well,
Yeah.
Modern Dog, spring 2018, if you want to get a back issue.
Yeah, yeah.
Well, Justin, thanks for giving me your time.
Yeah.
I was pleasantly surprised because a lot of times when I find out an artist has a dog and I do a quick check on social media, it's like, great, they've got a dog, and I send out my little pitch letter. And then upon you saying yes, when I went back, I'm like, oh my God, I didn't realize how much of the dog is on your account, which I love. I love it. It gives me so much to work off of. And actually, if you go back to your very first Instagram post, which is in August 10th, 2013, it's Gigi with a Frisbee in her mouth.
Yep.
But thanks for your time. I love talking with you, and it's been a pleasure.
Thanks for having me. I really, really appreciate it.